Hello everyone, this is Aaron from Aaron11 Productions. Welcome back to another video here. Today I want to talk about why don't we ask questions anymore? I mean, the idea of asking questions to hopefully and search for a response is very, very important that we do in our daily lives. But it seems like we're not doing enough of that lately. I'd like to talk about something I experienced just recently in class. We're going over the controversy of book banning. And I don't know too much of the details about the book banning, but we watched a little bit of a news report about this subject, about book banning and how it's been used for hundreds and hundreds of years, and we're still experiencing book banning, or so it seems, according to the news that reported it. And it was very interesting. It had something to do with the Tennessee school board banning a book for reasons of nudity and cuss words, like strong language. And I find that, wow, that's very silly to ban a book like that. But I don't know too much about how authentic or how reliable the news is being reported by that, considering that a lot of our news media seem to have a particular bias, and sometimes they over exaggerate or leave out a small detail that makes a big difference. And so the question I started forming in my head is, I had two questions. Let me go with the second one because the first one I think is the most important one. But the second one is, okay, if the school board of Tennessee has a problem with this book because of nudity and strong language, and this is being shown to 8th graders, do they teach health education that's relating to reproductive systems? And if they do, how do they teach those types of subjects, and maybe even anatomy? I don't know. The 8th grade that I went to never had a course about pre-anatomy or anything like that, but we did have an educational health on the reproductive systems, and we did see some drawings, and we did see some nudity that help us educate about the reproductive systems of health. And so if they are teaching that but leave out nudity, how can you teach health reproductive systems without nudity? And if they teach other courses that contain strong language, especially in very old texts and Old English, maybe some of those language could be considered strong language today. But the whole point of that question is, if this is a reason why the book is being per se banned or being per se being excluded out of the curriculum, how consistent are they with their reasoning throughout other subjects in relating to education? And the first question, and that's a good question, is you want to see how consistent is the school board is about on this. But the first question, I think, is the most important one. Is this book the only literature talking about what it's talking about? And apparently the book talks about a little bit of history of the Holocaust. And my biggest question was, is this the only literature that they're using in class to teach about the Holocaust? If not, then maybe they have other literature they're teaching about the Holocaust. Or maybe they're not teaching about the Holocaust. Who knows? I would be concerned that if that's the only book and they don't want to teach that, I would be a little concerned. I'd be like, okay, that's a little weird. Why don't you not want to figure out or not want to teach that part of history to our students, our kids? But if that's not the only source of information to learn about the Holocaust that they're providing in schools, then what's the big deal? I think it's a little ridiculous to just throw away the book, but at the same time, is that the only literature that they're using to teach the Holocaust? Because if it's not, then it's not really a big deal per se. But what about other books? What about other books that are not included in the curriculum or not included in the school library? Like, for example, I think it'd be a great idea to show the importance of philosophy, because you'll find a lot of interesting ideas in philosophy, and a lot of these ideas have been inspired by and as a result of our Western culture today. And you learn so much about where these ideas of our democracy has come from. It's come from a lot of these philosophers, and some of these philosophers you can find some sort of wisdom and some sort of interesting intelligence that help in the psychology today. So I think my favorite example about this is the allegory of the cave. And this is my favorite example because allegory of the cave teaches us that just because we see one perspective doesn't mean we have to act, doesn't mean we have to interact with someone aggressively who don't agree with us. And I think that's the beauty of that, and there's some value that you learn from people that don't necessarily share your point of view. But once you learn from each other, I mean, it can either make or break, but it doesn't matter. That the point is to expand your awareness of what other people's perception of reality. And I think that's really interesting. I think that's very informative for the individual to let them know that not everyone sees the world the way rigid and black or white or this or that. There's a lot of complexity throughout the world, and it shows us that people are a lot more complicated than we give them credit. And it's very interesting to see the world that way. And maybe those people need a voice. I don't know. But it's just very interesting. So, those were the questions I asked in class, and no one could answer that for me. No one can answer that for me. And knowing that no one can answer that for me, we just assumed that the whole class just assumed that, oh, they're just banning these books. They're banning this book because so-and-so. And look, I'm not a very educated person about the subject, but I just asked some very important, vital questions. How consistent is the School Board of Tennessee being about this? And is this the only literature that they're teaching kids about the Holocaust? Because if it's not, maybe there's other literature that they're teaching and they just left that part out. And that's my point. Are we working on this based on assumptions? And if we are, why aren't we asking questions? Why don't we think these questions are important? They probably are important, and we were just ignorant and probably too lazy to even look up for the answers. And based on that, you can cause a lot more damage than you can cause more harm than good, based on misconceptions or misrepresentations or a misassumption on the situation. Those are some two important questions, and I'm going to see if I can find the answer to my question. But I was really disappointed that no one thought these questions were important enough to really search for. And I don't know what to say about that. I really don't, but it's kind of weird. But I think we should ask more questions and to see the bigger picture here and see if the assumptions are true or if the assumptions are wrong. And I think that's good. That's good to be working on certainties rather than just assumptions. Anyways, that's all I have time for you today. Thank you so much, and goodbye.